Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, gentlemen and gentlewomen, and also gentle children. Today is Wednesday. We have now gotten our first, I guess you can call it the first reset of Dragonflight, coming right after the release. We are now all still either leveling or fresh out of the leveling experience in Dragonflight. Maybe you're already busy leveling your second character, like myself, for example. So right as we start this new week and this first week in Dragonflight, I wanted to get you a recap of things you can do in this first week, things you should take care of in this first week, just in case you are forgetting or just in case you don't want to read guides. Way too long, way too complicated, and more importantly, we all know you cannot read. So it's probably better if you just listen instead. Now, as a reminder, I am nowadays also found on Twitch to stream. Generally speaking, it's going to start past 10 p.m. in EU time zones, as well as 1 p.m. Pacific in the US and 4 p.m. Eastern in the US. So if you ever want to come by, I don't know if you have noticed, but I do like to talk quite a bit, and quite often I tend to talk a little bit too much. So it is pretty nice to have some people to chat with as I go through all of the tasks and duties to do for this first week in Dragonflight. I will be happy to welcome you there as well. Now, for today, let's go and start with the most useless thing you can take care of this week. Because eventually, if you're playing enough, you're going to end up without too much to do. Especially if you're playing, let's just say that the fewer characters you're playing, the more time you will have to take care of this, which are the Dragonriding races. Now, let me just go ahead and say immediately that the Dragonriding races will just give you cosmetic rewards, okay? So, in particular, when you finish all of them, when you get all of the achievements, you're gonna get the special spiked crimson spolders as a reward for transmog, and then all of the other previous rewards are all going to be appearances for your dragons. So, there are going to be multiple appearances for multiple different dragons. No surprise, the Dragonriding races tied to a particular zone will reward you with an appearance for that particular dragon. So the Teldrassus achievements will give you appearances for your Cliffside Wilder Drake, whereas the Azurspan achievements will give you the rewards for your Highland Drake. But there are quite a few cool ones amongst these achievements. For example, golden and red tinted armor, pretty much in the same style as the shoulders, are only found in these set of achievements. So, if you are a fashionista and you want to style your dragon with those colors, that's how you're gonna find them, by doing Dragonriding races. You might have found or skipped altogether the first quest that gets offered to you right as you learn Dragonriding. There is a guy offering you a quest to join all of the Dragonriding races in the Waking Shores. Once you complete that, you will get more quests to go into more zones and complete all of the Dragonriding races, and then the quests for the advanced courses of Dragonriding. Eventually, you will get to do them all. You will get achievement progress as you go on until you finish the full set and you get one piece of these appearances. So, as I said, we start with the most useless one because it gives no character power besides making your dragon look cooler. We all know that cooler transmog makes you do 20% more DPS. So I guess in this expansion, we will know if cooler transmog for your dragon also gives you a DPS boost or not. Besides Dragonriding, looking at some more action, you have weekly events. I guess these are somewhat of a replacement or an addition to world bosses that you should remind to do every week. Instead, these are a little bit, I would say, cooler in the way they work. So number one is going to be the siege on Dragonbane Keep. This is the elite, basically the elite only zone, that little snippet of land in the Waking Shores where you do your quests with Sabellian and Wrathion to retake their stronghold. That's going to be filled with elites. There's going to be a whole bunch of other dailies and weeklies you can do in there. And once in a while, every day, there is going to be constantly running an event called Siege on Dragonbane Keep. Now, you, for the rewards, can only complete it once a week. It's gonna start right here, right on this hill, as they prepare for the siege, and then you just follow the NPCs along and try to complete the event. Now, completing it solo is going to be quite impossible, given the amount of HP and damage that the enemies can do, but, you know, especially at the start of the expansion, it's going to be quite the crowded event. Just make sure to do it, because you're gonna get a whole bunch of goodies with supplies, rep, materials, possible items and gear dropping from this event that you can do once a week. Talking about once a week, we are now tripling the amount of events you can do a week, because there are also the Centaur Grand Hunts. These can be done 3 times per week, not just 1. There is a catch, however. The more you do them, the lesser the reward. So initially, your first every week will get the maximum possible reward from this event, and then the second one will be a little bit worse, and the third one will be the weakest amount of rewards you can get. The type of reward is very similar to the Siege of Dragonbane Keep, so a whole bag of goodies, of things you might care about a lot at the start of the expansion, because you want artisans metal for your professions, you want the rep for your renown levels, maybe some early level good gear as well. So we have looked at before how grand hunts work. Basically, it's some sort of investigative hunt as you try to catch the big beast. You study its footprints, its trail that left behind, until you eventually corner the beast and fight it and get your reward. Now this, however, unlike the Siege of Dragonbane Keep, is not just fixed in one zone. Even though it's called a Centaur Grand Hunt and you would expect it to be strictly in Onaran Plains, it can also just go around. It can also go and be found, for example, in the Azure Span as well. The last of the events, and we are going back to being stationary in one place, are the community feasts from the Tuskarr in their own capital, in their own hub of Iskara. You can find this community feast every 3 or so hours. You will also see it on the world map as well, the fact that a community feast has started, and then you just have to go there and see what the Tuskarrs are requiring of you to provide them for their feasts, to get yet another big bag of goodies. Once again, this one, just like the Siege on Dragonbane Keep, is going to be on a weekly reset. So you can only do this once per week on every character. These were more or less the special things. Then we go back to the more grindy part of your max level experience, which is going to be doing heroic dungeons and then mythic dungeons, mythic 0, so to speak, dungeons giving you up to 372 item level gear. You might start already trying to look for guides, trying to look for some good old pre-bis raid gear, maybe looking at some special trinkets you might want and whatnot in Mythic Zeros. Interestingly enough, all of the dungeons of Dragonflight, including the 4 ones we don't get in Mythic Plus, will be part of Mythic Zero, and not the extra 4 dungeons we get from Mythic Plus will be part of Mythic Zero. So even dungeons we won't be seeing in a while in Mythic Plus, like Neltarius, like Breckenhide Hollow, like Halls of Infusion, and Uldaman as well, all won't have their Mythic Plus version. There shouldn't be too much of a need to remind everyone, of course, that Mythic Zeros are on a weekly lockout, so it's once again something you have to do once per week. Now, this is somewhat time-consuming, although not particularly. What will be a little bit more time-consuming and will progressively become more and more time-consuming, of course, depending on the amount of characters you have, is, of course, the open world grind tied to your professions, as well as tied to the different factions you want to focus. Now, we had a video, at this point a couple of videos or more about this, about I'm hoping you followed the suggestions of checking out which professions were best for grinding which particular faction. It was something along these lines, showing you which of the professions were awarding you with which patterns, schematics and whatnot, so that you know, now that you are at max level, which of the factions do you need to focus to level up your renown in. For example, in this expansion, something like the Alacritus Alchemist Stone is going to be a very good trinket for you to have, and it just requires 13, which is not too much, renown with the Maruk Centaur. So for example, if you were an alchemist and you wanted this one done before the raid opens, before Mythic Plus opens, so you can have this trinket done before this December the 12th, you need to make sure to have 13 renown with the Maruk Centaur, for example. You will need to pay attention to the world quests and the daily quests in the Maruk Centaur camps that are gonna pop up every couple of hours in different locations, as well as doing your 3 grand hunts we just mentioned every week, so you can get the rep for the Maruk Centaur, because you are an alchemist and you want to get that pattern. Same goes for pretty much all of the other professions with different patterns you might find interesting or important for you to get or not. What also you shouldn't miss out, talking about what to pay attention for in your weekly activities, are the profession weeklies, although these are not nearly as time consuming or whatever, just to make sure not to miss them. Once you go right here in the Artisans Market in Valdrakken, after the reset, so I guess if you're watching this video, the reset has already come, then you're gonna find your profession weeklies in there. Same goes for the Aid in the Accord weekly, which is very similar to your Zereth Mortis weekly, to just do a bunch of stuff, gain a bunch of rep in the open world to finish this quest, and even PvP weeklies, because there are going to be plenty of, and they will also give you some renown as well as the typical honor or conquest rewards, so it might be worth pursuing if you're trying to maximize your renown gain. Lastly, something that you might have skipped, or very likely you will have skipped if you did not know about this already, is the very important set of quests which will lead you to the Dragon Shard of Knowledge. This is a turn-in that will be able to give you a whole bunch of profession skill points and artisans metal. The artisans metal is needed for your profession, and the skill points are of course also needed to specialize more and further into the skill trees of your professions. Now, the reason why I said it's worth pointing this out is because you might have found right as you started leveling in the Ruby Life Pools this quest right here, a gift for Miguel. It tells you to go and pick up some fiery spirits, you bring them back, you get your reagent pouch, and then you talk to the Tauren lady, and the Tauren lady gives you a hat. And that's it. And then you just go on your way. Well, it's time to go back. It's time to go and talk to Miguel again once you unlock your first specialization to your first profession. So this quest right here is basically hidden, it's blocked. It requires you to reach 25 skill points, which is the level you need in the profession to unlock your first specialization. Once you have unlocked your first specialization, you will get this quest and it will reward you with your first Dragon Shard of Knowledge. Now, of course, you still don't know where you have to turn in this Dragon Shard of Knowledge. So the quest line will continue and eventually it will land on you having to go right here to Kadin, which will be the NPC in the cave where you have to go to turn in these Dragon Shards of Knowledge, which can be found both in the world in treasures randomly, although that's not quite confirmed yet, but also they can be found in things like the chests, like the weekly chests, for example, from the community events or other types of treasures where you can find these Dragon Shards, which are going to be very handy for progressing your profession. So as far as weekly things to do, as we wait for things like raiding, PvP season, as well as Mythic Plus season, this is pretty much all there is. Taking care of your dungeons for your gear, taking care of your world quests and daily quests for your renown, for your reputation and your profession, and lastly, if you have a little bit more time or if you care about your dragon looking cool, you can also take care of dragon races as well. So with this disclaimer, in case you had missed any of these things, we can stop for this Wednesday. Of course, as usual, I am starting by thanking all of my dear Patreon supporters for continuing to support me and this channel. You can support still, of course, in other ways, which don't include having to spend cash, like liking and commenting down below, as well as subscribing to this channel. You can, of course, also find me in other places. You can follow me on Twitter, subscribing to Patreon, and also now you can check out my stream over at Twitch as well. With this out of the way, thank you guys again for watching. See you guys soon, and in the meantime, I have to go. Can't waste any time. Max level with the Evoker, time to go and get max level with the Druid as well. See you guys in the Dragon Isles.